Here is Grandma's 56 clever kitchen hacks. Simple, smart, and still working wonders today. These are the practical tricks that kept her kitchen efficient, waste-free, and always ready to cook. First, store bacon grease for cooking flavor. Grandma never tossed out bacon grease. After cooking bacon, she'd pour the warm drippings through a strainer into a jar and keep it in the fridge. That flavorful fat was used to sauté green beans, fry potatoes, or add depth to cornbread batter. It added a smoky richness to just about any dish. Unlike processed oils, bacon grease gave meals a homemade taste that couldn't be faked. One spoonful made soups heartier, gravies bolder, and breakfast unforgettable. It was flavor-saving, budget-saving, and waste-free all at once. 2. Use a wooden spoon to prevent pot boil-overs. Whenever pasta or potatoes were boiling, Grandma balanced a wooden spoon across the top of the pot. The spoon would break the bubbles as they rose, keeping them from spilling over. She said it gave her time to finish chopping vegetables or washing dishes without worrying about a messy stove. It's a simple, chemical-free solution that works like magic. No gadgets, no fuss, just common sense in a kitchen that valued neatness and efficiency. 3. Wrap cheese in wax paper, not plastic. Instead of sealing cheese in plastic wrap, Grandma used wax paper followed by a loose wrap of foil. This method let the cheese breathe while still protecting it from drying out. Plastic traps moisture and encourages mold, while wax paper balances airflow and freshness. Whether it was cheddar from the general store or homemade cheese from a neighbor, it stayed firm and flavorful longer this way. She stored it in a cool, dry spot in the fridge, never smashed into the back corner. 4. Sharpen blades with the bottom of a mug. Grandma didn't buy fancy knife sharpeners. She flipped over a ceramic mug and used the rough ring on the bottom as a sharpening stone. A few careful swipes on each side of the blade brought her kitchen knives back to life. It was a regular part of her kitchen routine, especially before prepping big meals. Sharp knives made chopping quicker, safer, and more precise. And the mug trick? Reliable and always within reach. 5. Use salt to scrub cutting boards. After cutting onions, garlic, or meat, Grandma reached for salt. She'd sprinkle a thick layer over the wooden cutting board and scrub it in with half a lemon or a damp rag. The salt acted as a mild abrasive, pulling up odors and stains. After a good rinse and air dry, the board smelled fresh and looked new again. No chemical sprays, just elbow grease, natural ingredients, and a board that lasted decades. 6. Keep brown sugar soft with a slice of bread. If her brown sugar started turning into a brick, Grandma slipped a piece of fresh bread into the container. Within a day or two, the sugar was soft again. The bread donated its moisture without spoiling or molding. She swapped it out every few days, depending on the weather. It worked better than clay discs or microwaving and cost nothing. A loaf of bread stretched further when it kept the pantry organized, too. 7. Dry herbs by hanging them upside down. Grandma knew when the garden was overflowing with mint, thyme, or rosemary, it was time to preserve them. She bundled the herbs with twine and hung them upside down in the pantry or by the window. Within a week or two, they dried naturally and kept their flavor all winter long. She'd crush them by hand into jars or reuse spice tins. It was a calm, satisfying ritual, and it made her roasts and soups smell like summer all year round. 8. Use vinegar to clean cloudy glassware. Cloudy glasses were never acceptable in Grandma's house. She'd soak them in white vinegar and water, then rinse with hot water and polish dry with a cotton towel. Vinegar cut through hard water stains and soap film, bringing back the shine. It was especially handy before hosting guests, when presentation mattered. No harsh chemicals, no waste. Just a reliable kitchen staple doing double duty. 9. Turn leftover veggies into broth. Nothing went to waste in Grandma's kitchen. Onion peels, carrot ends, celery tops, and even garlic skins went into a freezer bag. When full, she'd toss them into a pot with water, salt, pepper, and a bay leaf, then simmer for hours. The result? A deeply flavorful vegetable broth used for soups, rice, or gravies. It cost nothing, cut waste, and turned scraps into gold. 10. Use ice water for fluffier biscuits. Grandma swore by ice-cold water when making biscuit dough. Warm ingredients melted the butter too soon, ruining the flakiness. She kept her water, butter, and even the flour chilled until ready to mix. The cold helped create steam pockets in the oven, leading to fluffy, layered biscuits every time. She baked them in a hot cast iron skillet, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. 11th, chill pie, dough before baking. Grandma never skipped this step. Once she finished rolling out her pie dough and fitting it into the dish, she'd pop it into the fridge for 30 minutes before adding the filling or baking. Why? Because chilled dough holds its shape better in the oven, preventing shrinking or slumping. It also helps maintain those buttery layers that make a crust so flaky and crisp. She'd do the same with the top layer too. The result was a perfectly golden, tender crust. No soggy bottoms, no fuss. 12. Save butter wrappers for greasing pans. Instead of tossing butter wrappers, Grandma folded them and stored them in a jar in the fridge. When it came time to bake, she used the buttery side to grease pans. It was just enough grease for cakes, muffins, or biscuits, and there was no need to dip into a fresh stick. It's a clever zero-waste habit that saved time, effort, and money. Plus, it made cleanup easier by creating a natural non-stick layer. 13. Prevent sugar clumping with a few marshmallows. Sugar absorbs moisture in humid weather, which leads to frustrating clumps. To fix that, Grandma placed 2 or 3 marshmallows in her sugar canister. The marshmallows acted like little moisture absorbers, keeping the sugar smooth and easy to scoop. It worked for both white and brown sugar, and if a marshmallow hardened, she'd swap it out. Simple, sweet, and effective. 14. Use a potato to remove excess salt from soup. If Grandma ever got a little heavy-handed with the salt, she didn't panic. She'd peel a raw potato, cut it in half, and drop it into the pot. After simmering for 15 to 20 minutes, the potato would absorb some of the excess salt from the soup or stew. She'd remove it before serving. This trick doesn't undo oversalting entirely, but it made a noticeable difference. Enough to save dinner. 15. Keep bananas fresh with foil. Bananas ripen fast, especially in a warm kitchen. To slow the process, Grandma wrapped the stems of her banana bunch in aluminum foil. This blocked the release of ethylene gas from the stems, which is what speeds up ripening. She also separated a few bananas to keep them from ripening each other. It helped keep them firm longer, which was useful for baking or slicing over cereal. 16. Revive hardened honey with warm water. When the honey in Grandma's pantry crystallized, she didn't throw it out. Instead, she placed the jar in a bowl of warm water and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. The gentle heat returned it to a smooth, pourable consistency. She avoided microwaving, which could damage the flavor and nutrients. This gentle approach made every last spoonful usable again. 17. Use coffee grounds to scrub greasy pans. After making a fresh pot of coffee, Grandma saved the used grounds and kept them in a small container near the sink. If a pan had stuck on grease or residue, she'd use a spoonful of the gritty coffee grounds to scrub it clean. They worked like a mild abrasive, breaking up buildup without scratching the surface. Bonus, they also helped neutralize bad smells in the drain. 18. Use ice cubes to lift fat from soup. If a soup or stew turned out a bit too greasy, Grandma reached for an ice cube wrapped in cheesecloth or a spoon. She'd skim it across the surface of the hot liquid, and the fat would cling to the cold surface. It was a quick way to reduce oil without losing flavor. Once she was done, she tossed the cube and wiped the ladle clean. 19th. Dry washed greens with a pillowcase. Before salad spinners were common, Grandma had a simple hack. She'd rinse her lettuce, kale, or spinach, then toss them into a clean pillowcase. Holding the ends shut, she'd swing it around outside like a windmill. The motion forced the water out of the greens and into the fabric. It left the greens crisp and dry, ready to use or store. 20. Use chalk to absorb moisture in cabinets. Musty smells in pantry cabinets were no match for Grandma's chalk trick. She hung a few sticks of white chalk in an old mesh bag or cheesecloth pouch inside cupboards. The chalk absorbed moisture and helped prevent mold or mildew. Every few months, she'd swap them out. It was an inexpensive way to keep food storage areas dry and odor-free, especially during humid seasons. 21. Trap fruit flies with a jar and vinegar. Grandma didn't need store-bought traps to deal with fruit flies. She'd fill a small jar with a bit of apple cider vinegar and add a few drops of dish soap. Then she'd cover the jar with plastic wrap and poke small holes in the top. The vinegar attracted the flies, while the dish soap broke the surface tension, causing them to sink once they landed. It worked like a charm, especially in the summer when fruit flies were everywhere. 22nd, use a wooden spoon to prevent boilovers. When boiling pasta or potatoes, Grandma would lay a wooden spoon across the top of the pot. The wood disrupted the bubbles and kept them from rising too high, helping prevent boilovers. It wasn't foolproof, but it gave her a few extra minutes to multitask without cleaning a messy stovetop later. No fancy gadgets, just a spoon and a smart habit. 23rd, store tomatoes stem side down. To make tomatoes last longer on the counter, Grandma always flipped them upside down, stem side down. This helped seal in moisture and keep air from entering where the fruit detached from the vine. It slowed down ripening and kept them from rotting too quickly. She also kept them out of the fridge, where cold temperatures ruin their flavor and texture. 24. Clean your grater with a potato. If cheese or zest stuck in her metal grater, Grandma had a neat solution. She'd grate a raw potato over it. The moisture and starch in the potato helped push out stubborn bits, making cleanup easier. Once she finished, she'd rinse the grater under warm water and use a brush if needed. It was a simple trick that saved scrubbing time. 25. Add rice to salt shakers to prevent clumping. To keep salt flowing freely in humid weather, Grandma added a few grains of uncooked rice to her salt shaker. The rice absorbed moisture and prevented the salt from clumping. It was especially helpful in summer kitchens without air conditioning. The trick works just as well today, and it's the reason you still see rice in restaurant shakers. 26. Keep cheese from sticking with a light dusting of flour. When grating soft cheese like mozzarella, Grandma tossed the block in a bit of flour first. It created a light coating that prevented sticking and made it easier to shred. She'd even dust the grater lightly for extra insurance. The flour disappeared when cooked, so it didn't affect the flavor or texture, just made things neater. 27th.